Hi, Black Hollywood Live fans. Today we're talking about the Dakota Access Pipeline, the Oakland warehouse fire, and Joe McKnight's killer is arrested.
You are tuned in to Black Hollywood Lives. Justice is served.
Hello and welcome to Justice is Served. Thanks for joining us on Justice, where we talk about the latest in legal news every single week here on Black Hollywood Live. My name is Chelsea Galicia and I am joined by a full house of co-hosts. We've got our new co-host, Domonique Price. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
A little bit about Domonique. 4 years ago, she became an attorney, worked for the Portland Trailblazers. Fancy. And then now, I really love that you're working general counsel for a nonprofit started by Starbucks.
Yep.
Very cool. And then we've got the old kids. Yemi, Abayami, and Shaka Smith. Hi, guys.
Hi, glad to be
Hey,
here.
good to see you.
So we've got a massive rundown and not a whole lot of time, so let's get to it, shall we? First of all, what the F is up with the mistrial of Michael Slager? Who here was surprised by that?
Totally
Not surprised. Really?
Not surprised.
Wait, really?
That video is so
You were surprised or not surprised?
Yes, surprised.
Yeah, no, I was surprised
He's
too. You
running
guys were
away.
I was not surprised at all.
Really?
I mean, literally 6 white males, 5 white women, and 1 black male as a jury, and we're surprised that there's a mistrial.
I was surprised because this was one of the instances where we had clear-cut video footage.
Yeah.
It wasn't that the videotape started halfway into the shooting or right after the shooting. You saw the man running away. You saw the distance between the victim and the officer. You saw the officer shoot the gun. You saw the officer drop the taser next to the body. I mean, this is one instance where everything was right there.
Because even some pro-police forces kind of came out and said, well, this one, okay, that one's not
So
right.
it looks like we got here because, and they won't say for sure, but it was like one juror who said he or she just refused to vote for a conviction.
Yeah.
And that whole thing throws it off. And so next step is what?
But,
New trial.
but was it clear whether it was not maybe the elevated murder charge, where they couldn't decide between which murder charge?
No, I don't
No.
know, because they gave the jury 2 options,
Yeah.
murder and manslaughter. And
So if one juror wants murder and the rest want manslaughter, it's still going to result in mistrial.
Theoretically, yes.
Yeah, I think my sense is they had an argument over which level of murder or manslaughter. I'd
We'll
be
never
shocked
know.
to find out it was
Right,
not
yes,
guilty
true.
versus one of the charges. So I think that's why they're very optimistic about their chances for the retrial.
I mean, this is so annoying.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's so annoying. I mean, if I were a taxpayer in this, I would say, I'm like, we got to go through this all over again. The poor jurors who were on there, some of them who were crying when the mistrial was announced, and that whole thing. I mean, annoying is too mild of a word, actually, of what I'm feeling. Like, I cannot believe that it was this laid out, this clear, and still we have one.
It wasn't not guilty.
Yeah,
it wasn't not
that
guilty.
it wasn't not
Yeah.
guilty. It was a mistrial. And they have said we are going to retry this case.
I would have been surprised if it was a not guilty. With these particular facts, there's no way that there was going to be a not guilty. It being a mistrial, I wasn't surprised.
Well, then now the interesting effect that this will have on another case in the same state, Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof's attorneys, and even though he's representing himself, he still gets attorneys to advise them on things.
Well, they changed that now. So I guess he'll be represented by attorneys in the guilty phase, and then in the penalty phase he'll represent himself.
Yes.
So now his attorneys are saying this verdict, or lack thereof, on the Michael Slager case is going to impact this case. Because now the public is going to really want a guilty verdict since Michael Slager wasn't convicted. You think that has any merit at all?
It was a creative argument. I
Creative,
was like,
very
creative.
I was like, oh, I like that ridiculous, but I like that you kind of thought that one up. But yeah, just a ridiculous argument.
Yeah.
To say we don't trust our juries
Right.
too.
They can't weigh the evidence and kind of independently.
In a completely separate trial that has nothing to do with their client.
Alrighty, yeah, because when you shoot 9 people and kill them, that alone is not going to get you
Exactly,
convicted.
as if the facts of the case in and of itself isn't enough.
I just felt like he wanted something to talk about. Like, I just didn't even see like a correlation between the two besides the fact that they're close geographically.
Yeah.
Right, same state. I mean, ugh. Okay, so now on to some good news, kind of, sort of, for the Dakota Access Pipeline saga. Over the weekend, it was announced that the Army Corps of Engineers was not going to grant an easement or a passage that would allow the pipeline to be built. And so this was seen as a huge victory for the people that have been camped out now for a month or two. And a slew of veterans, thousands of veterans, went into Standing Rock to help act as like human shields for the water protectors. And so this was seen originally as a victory when it was announced that this pipeline was either going to have to be rerouted. It was already, this was the rerouting. I think what people don't know is originally it was supposed to go through a town, and the people of the town said, heck
Isn't
no.
this the third time it's been rerouted?
It's definitely at least the third time that they've discussed rerouting. So of course Dakota Access Pipeline doesn't like this, so they have filed a lawsuit. Do you think that their arguments for this lawsuit have any, are they strong enough to make this pipeline go anywhere? Oh man, the opinions on this one are not as quickly forthcoming as the other.
I will say the Army Corps of Engineers made a point to say we're rerouting, but we have the full legal right to put this where we want.
Right.
So I think that weighs heavily in their favor.
For the company?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to get built?
Yes.
No!
Really?
Yes, I think it'll be built. I was doing a little digging the other day, and I was really, really surprised to find out that Donald Trump owns stock in the company. And so I think
Is it in Energy Partners? Is that right? And there's a lot of
different like subsidies like wrapped up in the company, but he owns a great deal of stock.
But he owned it, right? Because the last report I heard is that he sold all of his stock in June.
I got it.
Right. You mean all of the stock just...
We will never know.
We'll never know because we'll never see those documents.
He might still have ties, but my understanding is he sold all the stock in June. This has been such a huge case. It's got so much attention that I do not see the pipeline getting built.
Yay!
If it were to be built, it'd be like years after.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I think they're going to play a little stall tactic.
Yeah.
I think they're going to allow the media attention to go down just for optics. And when no one's really thinking about it, they will... frustrate another town, reroute it, and they will get their pipeline, and we'll all pretend like we didn't see it coming.
Yeah, well, I certainly don't think it's going to change this idea that they could really do whatever they want with these lands. And so I think you'll see more things like this, but I don't think it'll be built right there.
Yeah.
So in terms of lawsuits, so we have Dakota Access filing this lawsuit. Then we have a class action suit by the National Lawyers Guild against the Morton County police officers for excessive force.
Yeah.
Was that only to stop them from using the rubber bullets and all that stuff, or was that actually to seek damages on behalf of people that got hit with this stuff? It was like water cannons.
Yeah, my understanding was two separate suits. Yeah, so one would be a damage suit, and then the other one with an injunction to stop them from using those munitions.
Okay, because at first I thought it was only an injunction, and I'm like, okay, well that's not going to go anywhere because if they're not doing okay, so
I think it's a
I'm
suit
glad
for the
that there's
past injury that's already taken place.
Okay, good. Because one woman, I'm not sure if she actually did, but like had to have her arm amputated or was facing amputation because she got shot in the arm with something.
Someone may have even lost an eye, I believe, or went blind with an eye. Yeah.
Not cool. And then I think there was one other lawsuit that now is sort of well, I mean, here's the thing, not a lawsuit. So the company that wants to put in the pipeline has said, screw it, we're going to do it. That was their public statement. Yeah. Basically, screw it, we're going to do it, and we'll just pay the fine, which is probably like $50,000 or something like that. Yeah. Do you think that this is a case with enough attention that the Attorney General's office or somebody is going to step in to actually stop them, or you think they'll just have to pay this little, I mean, $50,000 for this company for a $3.8 billion pipeline is like 25 cents for you and I.
I just don't think the pipeline is going to be happening through Standing Rock at all. So it's just, whether someone steps in or the company says, wait, we should just pull off, it's not going to happen.
It doesn't seem like they're backing off at all. In fact, they've gone on the offensive and said, well, the Standing Rock tribe should have come to the table earlier. Actually, they did. Years ago, they told you, stop this, and you didn't listen, and now you're trying to say they didn't come forward at all. So I think these people are just morons.
But
I want to know who's running their communications department.
I think it was the CEO, Kelsey, what's his schmuck, whatever, just came out with his own statement, like, we're going to do this anyway. No, that really, really pisses me off. That he just thinks he's like, I'm just going to pay the fine.
Well, I mean,
a lot of business owners, they look at the risk analysis, like what's going to make more sense for us to stop production on this pipeline or for me to pay the fine, and normally they'll just pay the fine.
I mean, this is this is a whole nother topic, but this is the problem with our corporations right now. It's only about the bottom line. Nobody gives a hoot about the environment, water, sustainability, just profits, bottom line, and I'm going to stop there because otherwise I'm going to get really pissed. Okay, something else that's really sad that's bound to piss you off. This Oakland warehouse fire, where, I mean, what's the last count? 36 people died. It's not like this is the first time that there has been a fire in something. Shouldn't we have learned lessons by now? Apparently not. And now, I don't know if it's, consolation prize, but there might be charges stemming. I mean, I wish that something would have been done in advance. And apparently this guy, the owner, was cited for violations maybe about a year ago, and it wasn't enough to change
and
anything.
They were aware that people were living there in like unsafe conditions, and so
the owner says he claims he wasn't aware that people were living there.
But there were complaints, I believe, with Oakland that there were people living there in this unsafe manner. But I think it speaks to that larger problem of like the artists having to move to different spaces and not being able to afford different rent, and it's just a larger problem that needs to be addressed with community housing and the regulations and making sure things are safe and that people that are having to move out of cities can find a place of like housing that is acceptable. But
so do you think that enough of the responsibility falls on the owner that he should face criminal charges?
I think it falls on the owner and the city, because from what I was reading, people had made complaints to the actual city, letting them know, that people were living there. And so I feel like the ownership has to be on both parties. Like, if you were made aware as a city official or the police department that individuals were living there, can you show me what you guys did to...
I don't think they ever made it inside. I thought it was reported that there were complaints about this warehouse and that there was blight and that they had let trash pile up outside, but that they weren't able to... that there might have been people living, but the inspectors couldn't gain entry into the warehouse. So they were never really able to further their investigation.
Right, but my question was, why didn't you push that a little bit further? Like, if this is your job to go out and investigate and you couldn't gain entry, why couldn't you gain entry? Well, like, what were your steps to try and figure it out? Like, this is your job.
But I do think they may, in some ways, luck out here because it's going to be very difficult to find out what causes fire.
Right.
So, I mean,
and in Oakland, they have a law that
refrigerator
doesn't
may be to blame.
They had about a few different theories.
Yeah,
So
I think I was reading that the chief of the fire department said they're not even close to figuring out what the cause
could
was.
have been pyrotechnics, could have been a cigarette. So, if the cause of it is unrelated to, the blight of the warehouse, then certainly no one would be, at fault.
But if
it's
there was
arson,
not proper exits, I mean, he would be cited. I don't know if that would be sufficient for criminal charges. I mean, I feel bad. I mean, my mom is a commercial property owner, so I could just imagine how she would feel if something like this happened in one of her buildings. And I wouldn't think that criminal charges would be appropriate. Well, that's knowing my mom because she's so on top of it and she tries to keep everybody safe and comfortable and all that. And we don't know how this guy was, but if it seems like this was like a refuge for artists who couldn't afford a place to live, and this was their place, and he allowed it to happen, didn't mean anything by it, but I don't know if he kept sufficient entry or exit ways.
It said there was only one usable exit. I mean, I think at the very least, maybe he gets charged with, misdemeanor kind of code violations.
But not responsible for the deaths.
If they can't make the nexus.
I think it just depends on what he knew, how much he knew. Did he know that people were living there,
And can they prove it?
And can they prove that fire was the result of the conditions in the warehouse? And I think that might be very difficult this time. So it's unfortunate.
Really sad situation. All right, another sad situation. Joe McKnight's former NFL player was killed over the weekend in some sort of road rage incident. And what was unusual about this was that the guy who killed him was arrested but then let go instantaneously. And then now has been rearrested and is like, let me out of here. Why the heck does he think he can kill somebody and then just go home and have a cup of tea?
Yeah, I mean.
Well, he did.
Yeah,
he did. Well,
that. I mean,
again, I guess the question: why does he think he has to do that again, twice in 1 week?
Well, I was just really concerned about the kind of full-throated defense of releasing him from Norman. That said, we took our time to look at the evidence. But it wasn't typical. Here was a suspect that admitted to the shooting. He's on the scene. He's got a defensive stance. If this were a black guy, he probably would have been killed.
Oh, yeah.
But he's taken in custody and released when he's admitted to the shooting. So that was just an unusual step. Of course, Norman cited several reasons as to why that took place. But for me, they didn't wash. I don't know how you guys felt.
I just didn't think the reasons that they stipulated as to why they let him go clearly made sense to me.
Yeah.
I think that they should have kept him, and I think it paints a larger picture as to why.
Yeah.
And apparently he had been in an altercation actually at that same intersection some years
Oh, I
prior.
didn't know
so
it was
you
the
know,
same one.
as much as they talk about doing an investigation and doing research and having to let him go while they finish that research, you would have thought that in doing that research they would have seen that, oh, this guy actually might have a violent history. Maybe it is important to keep him while we're exploring that.
It was
rather than
another
letting him
road
go so
rage
soon.
incident.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was at the same dang intersection.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he followed the guy and then
Yeah.
So the
beat him.
police are saying, well, in this state we have, sort of a stand your ground defense type law, which should trigger memories of Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, and should further trigger your memories of the documentary 13th, which I'm sure everybody out there has seen already and then watched our special on it. So does that help make any more sense of why
No.
this went this way? You think because it seems as the stand your ground self-defense thing puts the onus back on the other person to prove that they deserve to not get shot.
I mean, yeah, they do. Apparently, they have a very robust stand your ground law there, and he says that the guy got out of his car and approached him, and at that point, he feared for his life, and that he shot from the car. And I guess if the officers take that as true, then maybe that's why they felt comfortable releasing him, because to them, he has a defense, and therefore they're going to let him go.
I just wonder if that would be applied universally amongst every.
Well, we know that it wouldn't, and I think that's probably
Thank
the
you
most
for stating
frustrating.
the obvious.
I think
that nobody wants to
I
say
think
out
that's
loud.
the most frustrating part, is that you know that this wouldn't have gone down the exact same way if it
the
would have
shooter
been a
was black
minority.
and the victim was white.
Yeah, and it's just frustrating to see that it continues to be a cycle that we.
And so I think
repeat.
you would hope that at the very least this case would give some equal treatment to black defendants if they're found in the same situation, so everyone's treated equally.
The police officer or sheriff who did the press conference and then quoted the N-word and all sorts of colorful language that has been used to criticize the department, he seemed to not understand that this is about a long-standing frustration about the unfair treatment. He seemed to just totally be focused in on just this single case. It's just very short-sighted of him. I understand you don't like to be insulted. I don't know what the point is of broadcasting those insults in a press conference, but whatever, he wanted to do that. And so it just it makes it seem so obvious, Mike. You don't get it. You really just don't get it. Hopefully he'll wake up soon. Then the other question that came up for me in seeing the charge of the manslaughter versus murder is, do you think that road rage is a sufficient, like, it gets you worked up in the heat of the moment, doesn't give you enough time to cool off? The same as the standard heat of passion crime is, walking in on your spouse in the middle of them cheating on you. Right, that's sort of like the standard. Is that the case that you guys all read in law school? Okay. So I'm thinking to myself, walking in on husband, wife versus road rage, is that the same thing that gets you reduced from murder to manslaughter?
I agree. I think it is similar to the heat of passion. I mean, I think of myself in the morning when I'm on the 101 and I'm zoning out and I'm singing and somebody cuts me off and I turn into a totally different person for a good 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I go back into my flow of the morning. So I do feel like it falls under that same definition. But it'll be interesting to see what they do here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I
You
think
thought it
obviously
was a good show.
the feelings are different, but certainly I think the rage is the same. Yeah.
Yes, rage.
No, I get irritated when somebody cuts me off or someone is moving a bit too slowly. I get irritated, but am I flying into a rage such that I'm going to reach for my gun and shoot somebody?
Well, given what they had done, I would think so, because one guy cut him off and he cut the guy back off.
They were going back and
this
forth.
was a back and forth. Words were exchanged, so it wasn't just cut me off once. They were like heatedly arguing as they're driving. So I think that gives it more. It rises to that level that you would be caught in the heat of passion and shoot someone. I can see that.
I've been that angry.
I felt that angry. Yeah.
Okay, note to self: don't cut off these
I
two
keep
on
no
the
firearms
road.
in my car.
Right.
I'll just declare that now for you and the police as well. Yeah.
All right. So now, everybody watch your computers, or I mean, I guess it doesn't matter if you watch your computers, but the FBI is going to have a much easier time hacking into them with this new Rule 41 that allows one judge to sign a search warrant for a bunch of computers across the country, whereas right now a judge would sign a warrant and that warrant would be good for a specific computer, at least computers in that, like district,
jurisdiction.
in that
Yeah.
jurisdiction. Now it's like a judge in LA can sign one that searches a computer in Georgia, right? Or starting
worldwide,
tomorrow.
It's
potentially.
world, yeah, that was
Worldwide,
worldwide.
Yeah.
And it seems almost an expansion because I know a couple of years ago.
Almost.
We had a case that said when you look at a computer, it's the same as for a particular item. It's the same as like looking at. It's got to be in plain sight. You can't go look at other files and then find some defendant's wrongdoing. So it was happy to see some limitation there, but this looks like a very broad, sweeping intrusion.
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is happening.
And the lack
I mean,
of
that's
definition.
crazy.
Yeah.
And nobody, I feel like this should be a big story, and
It's
nobody's
not.
talking about it except us.
Right. I was surprised to hear about it even just in reading about it. I hadn't heard anything back when the Supreme Court made the decision. I think 6 months ago.
Yeah.
That's when it first popped up in the first place.
Well,
and
so
I don't
this
remember hearing much about that.
weird thing is, a rule like this is not generally decided upon by a conference of federal judges. A conference of federal judges usually comes together to do some housekeeping with the rules.
Yes.
This seems like it should take an act of Congress to do this, but it kind of was just swept up in like a little change.
Well, they had the option to either delay the rule or kill it, and I think there was probably some thought that, with Barack Obama in the White House and the Congress, being a Republican-led Congress, that rule would either be extended or they'd give more time to make decisions or just be killed altogether. So I think it's raising concerns now because it looks like we're going to have a Republican
But this
president
was
in
never
Congress.
opened up for conversation. There were no hearings about
Just
this.
only recently, kind of at the 11th hour, where you had some senators saying, no, this is.
And
we
by
need
then
to do
it was
something.
like nobody cared. It was too late.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and it's just troubling that the word hacking is not even really defined. So
No.
what they can actually do, that's going to have to be a court case after they overreach, So we're going to have to wait for missteps on the government's part
Right,
to hack us for
right.
us to get some sort of framework to
Right.
control this.
I mean, this is one of the things that drives me kind of bananas, is that Americans seem to be obsessed with the Second Amendment and care nothing about the Fourth Amendment. But I think with laws or rules like this, people are going to become very well acquainted with the lack of their Fourth Amendment rights.
But I think
To
it's
the
also a lack of
extent they even
education.
realize it,
Yeah.
because I don't know
Yeah.
that people even know what the government. First off, they don't even know what they are doing, nor what they are capable of doing with their computers and how much they're
Yeah,
able
some
to
people
invade their privacy.
go around with a Post-it over like the camera because anybody, I don't know about anybody, but somebody could like turn it on without you knowing. So I may have to be a little. I mean, I don't know what they're going to come after me for. I don't know what's on
You
here.
never know.
this
so
show
a lot
might
of-
be
Right.
anti-American. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
But
in
it
the
seems
next
that
couple
they're
years.
able to do a lot of stuff. I mean, I think a lot of this came up with respect to like child pornography.
Right.
They were putting, I guess, malware. Once you would click on a site, that would kind of expose your computer to this malware, and then you could kind of track what that computer was doing. And then if they went to another site,
So for those reasons, it sounds like, okay, that's fine. What do I care? I don't have any
It's
child
just-
porn on my
yeah.
computer. But when somebody else uses it for a different reason, that's when things get scary.
Yeah, and we just don't know the capability. And a lot of the tools the government would like to use to hack, they're not necessarily tested. We don't know what kind of testing they've used to say that we're safely hacking your systems.
Is that a thing?
It really
Safe
just
hacking?
seems like the Wild Wild West.
It
Like
does.
there's no real plan of action as to how this is really going to be rolled out. And like you said before, we're just going to have to see some of their missteps. But the interesting part to me is just the lack of education. Like I feel like most people, I mentioned it in passing to somebody, and they were like, "Oh, they can't already do that." And I was like, no. they
Under the
can't.
Patriot
Wow.
Act, it feels like they're virtually
And that's
allowed
what
to
they
do
were
anything.
saying. They were
Yeah.
like, well, we thought, when they rolled that out after 9/11, that they pretty much had broad discretion to do whatever they wanted. And I'm like, no, people
Yeah.
know. But I don't know how we move forward to actually getting Americans to understand what their actual rights were
We tell
and
them
how
to
much
tune
we
into
diminish
Justice
them.
is Served.
And it's difficult because with a hacking, you might not know the ramifications till years later. So
Yeah.
you might not find this out till the case is referring back to something that happened 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes down.
Yikes. Okay, another case that I'm really excited to see how it goes down is this Sheriff Lee Baca corruption case. This thing got really interesting over the last week. So this case is about whether or not the top sheriff knew that there was obstruction of an FBI investigation into the jails. And so the couple of things that came out, I mean, trial is about to start, jury selection is going on right now. Two things. He is trying to claim an Alzheimer's defense.
Yes.
I think it's valid, though,
Yeah.
right? It seems like he has Alzheimer's.
Well, he's been diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's really any symptoms of it. And then this is years back
3
that this
years
stuff
ago
was
that this
going.
interview took place.
They're saying it would go to 2013 and about the false statements. They're not saying it would go to the 2011, what he was doing then.
Right, which is why they're
Yeah.
separating the two.
Yeah, so you know what, if the medical doctor comes in and says he's got Alzheimer's and he started suffering from 2013, then I see no reason not to give that some weight.
BS.
My issue, like, I'm with you. I'm calling BS just because my thing is, like, when was he diagnosed? Like, when did you know you had Alzheimer's?
If he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and this was serious, why was he allowed to just?
No, it
When
sounds-
did he retire?
No, it sounds like he
And
was
actually
diagnosed.
retired only because of this.
No,
Sorry.
It sounds like he was diagnosed after 2013, but the doctor's going to say that he was suffering from the symptoms in 2013,
Oh,
unbeknownst to him.
crap.
Well, if you're suffering from Alzheimer's, you're going to suffer from it without knowing you're suffering from it. So.
No, people around you would know.
No, not in the beginning stages. It may start off as just repeating certain words.
You
know.
beat up the innocent man who doesn't deserve to get his ass kicked, but we don't like him, so we're just going to do it anyway.
One thing that
we
I
talked
thought
about
was
this last week,
interesting-
right? This is what happened in the story. You look at me like I'm crazy, but we covered a story like this last week.
But in 2011, in 2011 we're saying he's culpable. There's no Alzheimer's. But in 2013, when he's talking to federal investigators, they're saying he may have been suffering from Alzheimer's, and that may have influenced the way he spoke to them. And so I'm willing to hear the doctors say that he was suffering from Alzheimer's in 2013.
Okay, so you have Alzheimer's and you're being interviewed by a reporter and you lie about knowing that the FBI was investigating your jails?
Well, the thing about Alzheimer's is you
No, you forgot.
With Alzheimer's, you forget, you don't make shit up.
Well, if that's what I need to hear a medical professional.
Right.
Because I don't know if that's
Yeah.
necessarily true. I have no idea if that's necessarily true.
Well, and the
You know,
interesting part is that
yeah.
there's so many different levels to Alzheimer's that I feel like you can pretty much throw anything out there, and if he literally had it,
Alzheimer's
it's gonna
makes you
fly.
lie?
Because there are some cases
I'm
where
with you,
people go
Chelsea.
to an alternate dimension and they
Yeah.
feel like things are happening that did not happen.
Yeah, so-
If he was
just
that
being devil's
crazy,
advocate here, like I
wouldn't
agree
he
with
be
you.
put on a medical leave?
Well,
No, they're saying he was suffering from the beginning of it. They didn't know it at the time, but because he was diagnosed afterwards. I think it's certainly a question for a jury.
Okay, so the interesting
I'm not
thing,
saying she
a
get off
decision-
and-
I would like to know kind of exactly what were the extent of the details
Yeah,
that he
I-
provided
Right.
in that interview.
I think
Was there a
yeah.
lot of clarity? And then the good thing is that they've convicted a number of other of his subordinates in connection with the same offenses. So if they are corroborating the same things, the same details that he was giving in that
Yeah.
interview, maybe that Alzheimer's
But-
defense is useless.
Yeah, so I'm not saying he should be, not guilty because of the defense. I'm saying it should go to a jury. They should be able to make a determination and listen to the experts and say, here's what happens when you suffer from the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. I don't think we all know.
I don't know. To me, it just screamed like mob boss. Like the lower ends always get the short end of the
yeah,
stick, and
certainly,
because
yeah.
the mob boss has the ability to kind of craft this crafty defense, he's
Yeah.
going to get away scot free.
Well, that's
Well,
just for
there's
the
no
line to
smoking-
investigators. Though. I think he's going to get convicted in 2011, and then we'll see what role the Alzheimer's played.
I don't know. Hopefully, he might get. They said there's no kind of smoking gun
Yeah.
documents,
Yeah.
but I think in connection with the other people who might roll on him
Yeah.
because they've now been convicted,
Right.
that's probably their best
And
bet.
I think if the jury has a general, if they know that there have been 9 other convictions, so I think that'll be
They
something.
may not.
Yeah, so that'll be something to weigh. But
I think it'll be interesting. I mean, from what I was reading, they're going to keep the two juries totally separate.
Yeah, this
which
is a really interesting approach that the
Right.
judge decided to take about the Alzheimer's thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, help me out with this. So one jury will hear about the Alzheimer's,
Yes.
and another jury will not.
yeah.
But they're not deciding the same thing. One
Yeah.
is
The jury that is hearing about the Alzheimer's, they're going to be discussing whether he made false statements
In
to federal
2013,
yes.
investigators. And the jury that's not hearing about the Alzheimer's offense, they're just hearing the case about the obstruction of justice and the conspiracy.
right.
got it.
However,
Okay.
if convicted in the second jury, the defense of having Alzheimer's prior to is going to be a valid defense to lower any type of punishment as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because if he has it, well, he has it now.
Yeah.
So certainly, they might keep you in jail and then let you compassionate release or something.
And
Yeah.
then the other issue that came up is that there's this LA Times reporter that he sat down for an interview with, and then the question was the judge going to force the reporter to testify? And normally reporters do not go anywhere near the witness stand. But in this case, the judge said, nope, sorry, dude, you're going to testify. Did you think that the judge made the right call on that?
Well, they're not. Yeah, I did, because they're not asking him to reveal his source. I think usually it's that they're not, called on to reveal their source, and usually journalists will say, "Look, I'll go to jail before I reveal my source because that's gonna, harm my ability to perform my job." But in this case, there was an interview, and I think he's only going to be speaking to what Baca said in that interview.
Right.
So in that case, I think it makes sense. And apparently there was no discussion at the time of the interview that the interview is meant to be confidential or off the record, and so I think that supports.
Who sits down with the LA Times reporter and assumes that it's confidential?
Right.
Yeah, the bigger problem is the plea deal. So he'd already had a plea deal that said, I lied to investigators, guilty, and then that plea deal wasn't accepted. So whether
Because
or not
the judge was like, 6 months, no, that's not going to fly.
So if the jurors know about that, so we're going to have to question the jury to make sure they don't know, and they have to do it in a way that doesn't imply that he pled guilty to something. So that'll be
If this
interesting.
man
This whole
theoretically
case is
said-
going to be very interesting. I
Yeah.
feel like there's so much mud on it already. I
Yeah.
think to get a clear idea is going to be hard.
Oof, can't wait to see how
They
this
say it
turns
was
out.
such a fall from grace that he was
Yeah.
viewed as like this great, police
Yeah.
sheriff, and then underneath.
I was trying to figure out how old he was.
I think he was in his 70s.
74.
Because I was trying to figure out. So I think this is interesting. So my dad and I were talking the other day. He's an executive at a company, and they have a mandatory retraction of responsibilities when you hit a certain age, because they just feel like you shouldn't be responsible for certain contracts, certain conversations when you get to a certain point, which I thought was really, really interesting. And so when I started reading about this case, I was like, is that something that we need to implement in the public sector?
Wow, that's a good
It's
question.
It's a great balancing test because you're going to
Why the eyebrows?
I love the eyebrows. I'm like, give it to me. I want to
because
hear.
you're talking age discrimination.
Well, no, but I get
Yeah.
it. But we're talking about an individual who was
public
legit,
trust, yeah. So
and had Alzheimer's, and potentially may or may not have
Well,
known
no,
it.
I think it's one thing to make a person step down when they have Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
I think it's another thing to
Like when you
say
hit
you're
age.
70 years old and therefore your cognitive abilities are.
Well, we're
are
just saying
impaired.
let's do something else.
But
Not you're fired.
I agree. I think if you hit a certain age and you're in a position of public trust, then maybe you should have
Annual
require for
medical
2 checkups.
checks.
Yeah.
2 checkups a year.
That's
You're
it.
required
Just
for
something
that,
in
yeah.
place, because he's basically saying that he may or may not have known that he had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
What was put in place to make sure that something like this didn't happen?
So why wasn't he getting regular checkups to check for Alzheimer's starting at age 70 or 68? Who knows? So I think it's something that you can implement. And
then he has to report. So what about privacy and health?
Except
We're
when it
now
I
when
think
it
if you're in a-
affects public.
when you're an elected official, I think then you
Yeah.
lose a little bit of that. Absolutely.
I mean, he's about to, claim the Alzheimer's defense for
Yeah.
corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if
If you're going to use that as a
defense.
defense, the public gets to know about it when you
If a
when you
president
have
were
it. when you're-
privately diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I think they have a
For doggone,
duty
you're about to make me
come out,
curse.
yeah.
Yes, I better
So,
know.
Yeah, so.
Right. So again, I think yes, if you have a health issue and there's a reason to
and you're an
support.
elected official, yeah.
Yes, but I think it should not just be age related.
No. I'm just saying
Checkups,
something put
yeah.
in place to make sure that you are in your right
Evaluated.
mind
Yeah.
to make sure that you can still do your job.
Yeah, you go to a doctor, but maybe twice a year after you hit a certain age, and you're in a
Or
position
some type of
an elected official.
evaluation.
Yeah.
Yemi is really on
Right.
Oh my gosh, we have hit the limit on our
yes.
time. We're going to have to finish the rest of the rundown next week. But thanks so much, everyone, for this lively debate.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us on Justice is Served. We hope that you'll join us again next week. In the meantime, like, comment, share, tweet me at Chelsea Galicia. Everybody want to go around and...
Yeah, you can find me at Shaka Strong on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat.
Hi, you can find me at Yemi on Twitter and Instagram.
And you can find me at Domonique P_ESQ.
Awesome, everyone. See you next week.
Bye, guys.
From executives Keven Undergaro, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, and the entire BHL staff, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us. info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I am the official voice of Black Hollywood Live, Scipio. Instagram me at KingXOBay. Thanks for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.